Hi, Dr. Hagmeyer here, and in the last video we talked about the adrenals, we talked about cortisol, and we talked about some of the problems that really result from having just too much cortisol in the body. In today's video, I want to spend some time explaining why this natural rhythm of your adrenals is really one of the most important steps to really restoring these adrenal imbalances. I'm also going to tell you the number one mistake that I see people who suffer with adrenal problems, people specifically that have sleeping problems, and the number one mistake, the supplement that they take that actually further worsens this adrenal imbalance. The thing you have to know about the adrenal glands is that the adrenals make a very, very powerful and absolutely essential hormone in your body called cortisol. Now, cortisol follows a very specific circadian rhythm where your adrenals will actually pulse out or pump out cortisol at very specific times of the day. Now, if we look at a graph, what you would see is that you would start out high in the morning, where you should have lots of energy. You get out of bed, you feel really good, you're not dragging out of bed, you're not hitting the alarm clock 10 times before you wake up. And by the time night rolls around, those cortisol levels should be at their lowest. Okay, that's what you really want to see. And that obviously should make sense because you don't want to have a whole lot of adrenal hormones or specifically a whole lot of cortisol being released just before bedtime, or otherwise you won't be able to fall asleep. Okay, your mind will be racing. So again, this healthy rhythm is really where your cortisol levels go from a point of being high in the morning to low at night. Okay, so that's critical. Now, this is the daily rhythm that is the norm. Okay, and I say that's what's supposed to happen. Okay, that's not what happens in most cases. If you encounter prolonged bouts of stress, like we talked about in the last video, and many, many different causes behind adrenal problems, what's going to happen is that rhythm is really going to be thrown off. Okay, and so when you look at the adrenal hormones, or when you look at specifically cortisol, you have to understand that the best measure, or the best way to assess these adrenal hormones is not going to be through blood, rather it's going to be done through saliva. Now, we use a test in our office where a patient will collect saliva at 4 times of the day, and these times are very important because these are the times where your adrenals actually pulse out that hormone, and that's really what we want to look at. So patients collect saliva at these 4 critical times of the day. And again, these times are important because we can see where the breakdown is actually happening in that rhythm. You know, so in other words, we wouldn't want to see in the middle of the day these values be very, very high. We wouldn't want to see these values at night be very, very high as well. Okay, so we want to be able to see where that rhythm is being skewed so that obviously we can support the body with obviously very, very targeted adrenal support at that time of the day. Now, many times patients will come to my office where they've had their DHEA levels checked, okay, and cortisol levels done through blood. And again, like I said earlier, this is not the best assessment of the adrenals unless we suspect something called Cushing's disease or Addison's disease, okay? And these are, again, these are very rare, so these are not things that we typically encounter on a daily basis. So what kind of problems can someone who has an adrenal imbalance experience, right? Obviously, from person to person, these things are going to be different, but here's just a short list. If you're suffering with things like digestive stress, belching, bloating, gas, gastritis, if you notice that you're experiencing a lot of mental fatigue or a lot of mental decline, right? You kind of come out of the store and you forgot where you parked your car, or you forget where your keys are, you forget where your cell phone is on a regular basis, okay? If you or your child has ADD or ADHD, that is something that will potentially affect the adrenal glands. Hormonal imbalances, right? For any woman that has symptoms of PMS, okay? For any man that's experiencing a loss in the change of strength, you're sad for no reason, you're more emotional, you're noticing that you don't have the muscle stamina, you're noticing that you don't have strength, you're noticing that your joints hurt, okay? Again, remember, these adrenal glands, these hormones like cortisol and DHEA, these are anti-aging hormones, right? So again, if they're out of balance, we're going to age prematurely, okay? So other problems from adrenal imbalances are going to be things like mood swings and depression. You might have hair and skin problems. You might have thyroid imbalances. You might have low sex drive. You might have insomnia. Again, we talked about those cortisol levels being real high at night, not being able to fall asleep. You might have weight gain, and the weight gain typically is going to be centered around the belly. Okay, it's going to be centered around the tricep area in the arms there. So if you can relate to any of these things, you really need some help, and you really need to get these things checked, and you need to get them checked properly. Now, the last thing I want to tell you about this, and this is super important because many people who suffer with high cortisol levels obviously can't sleep. And because they can't sleep, they're either taking some sort of sleeping pill. Maybe they're taking Lunesta, maybe they're taking Ambien, right? Or even maybe they're taking something called melatonin to help them sleep. Well, either way, both of these are really going to contribute to a further deterioration of your state of adrenal imbalance. And so you really don't want to do this. If your adrenals are not balanced, no matter how much melatonin you take, that's not going to fix your problem. If you have a blood sugar problem, that's not going to correct taking melatonin. Melatonin is not going to correct this blood sugar imbalance. So again, these are all the things that play a role as it relates to your adrenals. So again, if your adrenals are not balanced, you need to correct them first before you start taking any kind of sleep aid, okay? Now, I've done several videos on this, how to support your adrenals from not only a nutritional standpoint, but also from a dietary standpoint, how to support them naturally. And so you're going to want to watch those videos. So here's the thing. What I have found is that once you correct these blood sugar imbalances, once you correct possibly any thyroid problems, once you correct some neurotransmitter imbalances, and you've identified the cause of your adrenal imbalance, you'll never need these silly sleeping pills again. So again, that's super important to realize, is that because millions of people on a daily basis are swallowing these sleeping pills, and they're not correcting the problem, okay? So in closing this video, if you've suffered with any of these symptoms, you are experiencing some degree of adrenal imbalance, okay? And if that's the case, contact our office, okay? We work with patients all around the world, all around the country, and remember again, don't take melatonin until you understand what's driving your adrenals into this imbalanced state, okay? We can test you, we can find out where your adrenals are not properly following that rhythm, and from that point, we can help support those adrenals naturally without any medications. I'm Dr. Hagmeyer. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Take pride in your health. It's really the most valuable possession you have. All right? Take care.